Have you ever known a woman like this? She doesn't chase, she doesn't plead, she doesn't perform. Yet she becomes unforgettable. She moves through a man's mind like a whisper of wind across still water, leaving ripples in places he can't even trace. She is that archetypal presence that awakens both reverence and a strange sense of unease, not through anything she says or does, but through the quiet mastery of her own being. In her stillness, desire stirs and the ego trembles. He enters her world, unaware, armored in his own pride. He projects onto her the shadow of his own unmet needs, his hidden desires, his past disappointments. But she doesn't react. She doesn't rise to his claims or bend to his demands. Instead, she becomes a mirror. In her, he sees the parts of himself he has long hidden, the fear of inadequacy, the gnawing hunger for validation, the old patterns of attachment that repeat like echoes in empty hallways. Every glance she allows, every measured pause, every subtle shift in her posture becomes a language he can't quite name, a silent dialogue between shadow and light, anima and ego. He finds himself both a student and a prisoner in this unspoken conversation. The pull he feels toward her is instinctive, visceral, and deeply destabilizing, precisely because she embodies a quiet power he cannot dominate. The stoic, rational part of his mind might scoff at what it cannot control, but his heart knows the undeniable truth. True desire isn't summoned by pleading or pursuit. It's summoned by the sacred geometry of attention, awareness, and profound self-possession. In her detachment, he begins to recognize the missing pieces of his own journey toward wholeness. He might try to fill the silence between them with words, with grand gestures, with performances designed to impress her. But he soon discovers that it's her very lack of neediness, her silent refusal to sacrifice her own center for his ego, that ignites his deepest longing. This is where the real work begins, the shadow work. Without realizing it, he has made her a canvas for his unresolved trauma. His fascination becomes a projection of his obsession, his yearning for the recognition he never received. Each unspoken interaction between them carries an immense weight. The tension builds like the slow, inexorable turn of the tide, revealing the parts of him that seek to dominate, to possess, to define, and her every pause, her every moment of quiet observation challenges him to confront the void within himself. He is drawn to her as one is drawn to the moon's reflection on water, acutely aware of its intangible beauty, knowing he can never hold it. Yet compelled to watch, to pursue, to be haunted by what she represents, a perfect mirror of what he lacks and, more importantly, what he fears to face within himself. The dynamic deepens as their attachment styles clash. He reaches and she retreats with a quiet grace. He calls and she responds only when it feels true to her, not simply because he asked. He is pulled into a vortex of emotional turbulence while she seems to float above it, observing, knowing, untouched by the drama. From a psychological perspective, his intense desire is often amplified by old wounds. The very intensity he feels is frequently an echo of early neglect, unprocessed abandonment, or the familiar magnetic pull of patterns that have hurt him more than they've ever healed. But here's the crucial part. She does not engage in the drama. She doesn't try to soothe his anxieties or justify her own boundaries. Her self-worth is an untouchable fortress. Her gaze is deliberate, and in her quiet mastery, she evokes more in him than any words ever could. This creates a paradoxical pull inside him. Fascination and frustration, reverence and even rage. He might try to dominate the situation, to interpret her silence, to compel a response from her. Yet each of his efforts meets the impenetrable serenity of her spirit. It's in this challenging space that the true potential for growth emerges, not just for her, but for him. If he dares to look inward, desire is no longer a simple craving. It becomes the recognition of a force larger than his own ego. It becomes a magnetism born from presence, emotional sovereignty, and a mastery over one's own attachments. Symbolic moments will stand out in his memory, the unspoken glance across a crowded room that said more than 1,000 words, the subtle gesture that communicated care without concession, the measured step backward that reminded him she moves according to her own gravity, not his. Through these emotional turning points, he is forced to confront his projections and his shadows head-on, his paralyzing fear of loss, his deep-seated hunger for control, his desperate need for validation from the outside world. Every instinct he has to chase, to question, to overwhelm her is met with the silent, unwavering power of her detachment. And in that very tension, the desire only deepens. He can't name it, he can't own it, he can't articulate it. And in that ungraspable space, fascination can turn to obsession. Longing can transform into awe, and his ego begins to recognize something that lies far beyond manipulation or demand. She teaches without ever becoming a teacher. She moves worlds without taking a step. She exists without needing to offer an explanation. And then comes the culmination. She walks away, or perhaps she simply shifts her focus elsewhere. There may be no ceremony, no dramatic farewell, no final acknowledgement. But the invisible pull she carried with her completely reshapes his inner landscape. In her absence, he finally sees the profound difference between desire born of scarcity and desire born of genuine respect. He understands the distinction between an obsession fueled by a need to control and a deep longing awakened by authentic presence. In that realization, the liberation for both of them becomes clear. She remains untouchable in her sovereignty, and he is finally, truly confronted by the truths of his own shadow, his anima, and his own capacity for self-awareness. The woman who moves through the world with this quiet mastery is not weak. She is not passive. She is not defined by another's hunger for her. She is presence incarnate, awareness incarnate, a force that awakens the deepest human desire without uttering a single syllable. And she proves, once and for all, that the woman who walks away in silence isn't weak. She simply sees more. Thank you so much for watching. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content. We'd love to have you as part of our community.